All right, today we are diving into one of the poultry industry's biggest yet tiniest problems, avian mycoplasmosis. We're talking about a disease caused by a microbe so small it's almost invisible, but it quietly costs the global industry billions every single year. So let's get into it.
So just how small are we talking? Well, there's your number, 300 nanometers. It's kind of hard to even wrap your head around that. To put it in perspective, you could cram hundreds of these little guys inside a single regular bacterium. This isn't just small. We're talking about one of the smallest free-living organisms on Earth. And that tiny size? Well, that's the first clue to its very unique and very troublesome nature. And here's where it gets really interesting. The core paradox of mycoplasma. You see, it's defined by something it doesn't have, a cell wall. Now, outside of a bird, this makes it super fragile. It just can't survive for long. But, get this, inside a host, that missing wall is its superpower. It makes it completely resistant to some of our most common antibiotics, like penicillin, which work by attacking that very structure. It's a brilliant, and honestly, a dangerous evolutionary move.
This really breaks it down. On one side, you've got your conventional bacteria, all bundled up in a protective cell wall, which makes them pretty tough out in the environment. And on the other side, you have our wall-less mycoplasma, which is, incredibly delicate once it's outside a host. This one biological difference dictates everything: how it spreads, how it infects, and exactly how we have to fight it.
Now, there are more than 20 species of avian mycoplasma out there, but these are the main culprits. Think of this as the poultry industry's most wanted list. You've got M. gallisepticum, or MG for short, M. synoviae, or MS, and then M. meleagritis and M. iway. And each one has its own special way of causing trouble.
Okay, so we know what it is, but how on earth does such a fragile-sounding organism cause so much damage? That brings us to its playbook, how it gets in, and more importantly, how it manages to stay there.
It's got a few ways of getting around. First, and this is a big one, is vertical transmission. That means it passes directly from the parent to the offspring right through the egg. Sneaky, right? Then there's horizontal transmission, basically bird to bird, through coughing, sneezing, close contact. And for M. meleagritis, there's even a third route. It can be spread venereally. This pathogen has all its bases covered.
And once it's inside a host, wow, it's incredibly sophisticated. It has this special tip structure it uses to latch onto respiratory cells. From there, it starts releasing nasty stuff like hydrogen peroxide, which directly damages the host cells. But here's the craziest part. It does something called phenotypic switching. It's constantly changing its surface proteins. It's a master of disguise, which lets it just completely evade the bird's immune system. It can even slip inside host cells to hide from antibodies. Just an incredibly tough thing to get rid of.
So, with a toolkit that clever, you can imagine the damage it leaves behind is pretty severe. Let's take a look at the real-world consequences, what an infection actually does to the bird.
Let's start with MG, probably the most notorious of the bunch. In chickens, it causes what's known as chronic respiratory disease, or CRD. In turkeys, it goes by infectious sinusitis. As you can guess from the names, this one is all about attacking the respiratory system.
And the internal damage, it's pretty rough. When you look inside an infected bird, you find these thickened, cloudy air sacs filled with these, they're called caseous deposits, which look kind of like cheese. You also see this widespread inflammation affecting the lining of the heart, the abdomen, and the liver. This whole systemic attack often paves the way for other bacteria, like E. coli, to come in and make things even worse. It starts in the lungs, but it definitely doesn't end there.
All right, next up is M. synoviae, or MS. This species has a different target in mind, the joints. It's the cause of a really painful condition called infectious synovitis, which, as you can imagine, seriously impacts a bird's ability to even move.
The signs are pretty clear, and frankly, debilitating. MS loves to set up shop in the synovial membranes. That's the stuff that cushions the joints. This causes arthritis and inflammation of the tendons. The joints get all swollen and painful, and that leads directly to lameness.
And rounding out our most wanted list are M. meleagritis and M. iway. These two tend to go after the young birds, targeting their growth and making sure their skeletons just don't form the right way. So what does that actually look like? Well, you still see respiratory issues, like air saculitis, but the biggest hit is to development. The infection causes poor growth and these skeletal problems like chondrodystrophy. That's basically a condition where cartilage doesn't turn into bone properly, leading to all sorts of deformities.
If we zoom in and look at the cellular level, the picture gets even clearer. In the joints, those synovial membranes are thickened and just packed with immune cells trying to fight the infection. In the lungs, the immune system actually forms these dense clumps of cells that end up distorting and blocking the airways. It's a picture of an intense and ultimately a self-damaging immune response.
Okay, so we've seen the pathogen and we've seen the serious damage it causes. The big question is, how do we possibly fight back against such a well-equipped and stealthy invader?
This is so important to understand. All those signs we just talked about, the coughing, the lameness, they aren't unique to mycoplasma. A lot of different diseases can look like that. So just looking at a sick bird isn't enough. You can't diagnose this by sight alone.
And because of that, a real diagnosis has to happen in the lab. It's usually a three-pronged approach. First, you can check the bird's immune response by looking for antibodies. Second, you can try to actually grow the organism from a sample. That's called culturing. And third, the most modern technique is using PCR to find the pathogen's DNA directly from something like a tracheal swab.
This brings us to the single most important principle of control. It's not about treatment, it's about prevention. Since this disease can be passed down from parent to chick right through the egg, the most effective strategy, hands down, is making sure your breeding flocks are completely clean from the very beginning.
And how do you do that? Well, there are several methods. Strict eradication programs are the gold standard, but you can also do things like treat hatching eggs with antimicrobials, or even use very precise heat treatments to kill the microbe inside. And in parts of the world where this pathogen is everywhere, vaccination is also used to just reduce the overall pressure of the infection.
Now this right here is a crucial point to remember. Antibiotics can help. They can make a bird look better, reduce the coughing and lameness, but, and this is a big but, they will not eliminate the infection. A bird that's been treated can seem perfectly healthy, but still be a silent carrier, able to spread the organism to the rest of the flock.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. We are up against a microbe that is an absolute master of disguise and survival. It's tiny, but it's incredibly clever. And as it continues to adapt to everything we throw at it, the real question is, how do our science, our biosecurity, and our strategies have to evolve to stay one step ahead?